your conversations die because you're doing them completely wrong. It's all your fault. You've been told by terrible teachers that you need to show interest and make sure you're asking questions. That's how you get people to like you. That's not true. I don't believe it is. So, I'll tell you my story. I was in chemistry class, and I was getting ready to leave because it was the final class of the day. I was excited. I was about to, go back home, watch some Hamza videos, make myself feel productive. And I was talking to my table group mates because we were at like a 4-person table, and we were talking about I can't even remember the assignment, but then I started talking to this one girl who was next to me, and we were engaging in what I thought was a good conversation. I was asking question after question. I was making sure that I was smiling and nodding my head as well. And she was actually responding to me. Boom, I got it right there. And as this conversation is going, it's like semi-heard by the other 2 group mates at our table. And all of a sudden, this one boy, he stops the entire table group discussion, including mine, and says, "Tondo, I'm gonna be honest. You walk, sit, and speak like an NPC." That hurt. And the reasoning, this, is because the worst insults or the worst teases or whatever are the ones that are true. If he had said something like, "Tondo, you have terrible backflip skills," then okay, I mean, that may be true, but I don't really do it enough for it to be a thing I'm proud about or a thing I think about. But him telling me that I act almost robotic in my conversations, that struck a nerve. And it struck a nerve because I believe you agree with me on this. We as introverts, when we're trying to speak to people, we're often in our own heads. We're trying to think of, how do I get this person to like me? I need to make sure that I'm showing I don't know what that was. Showing myself as a likable person. We're so performative that it honestly does to other people look like we are NPCs, just trying to think of a nice script to sound good in our heads. So how do you actually have good conversations that don't feel terribly cringy, awkward, or like an NPC dialogue? Well, for starters, you do need to ask questions. That part is non-negotiable. Nobody likes a guy that just talks about himself. But there's a thing. You need to make sure the questions aren't brain dead, like the point where they want you to, end yourself. And what I mean by brain dead questions are questions that everybody has heard 1,000 times over. When you ask things like, "How are you? How was your day?" they are so automatic that the person listening almost doesn't even register them. They give their pre-programmed response. You've done this before. Usually when somebody asks you, "How's your day?" you just say, "Good." Or you give like a one-word answer because it's so instinctual within us that we don't even think about answering. Whereas when you make it more specific, let's say that you're meeting somebody and you notice their bag is great, like I did, then talk about that. From there, go on. How was your weekend? Did you get it there? Where'd you get it from? These things are unique to that situation and thus actually require the person to think before they give a response. Now, another bad thing that so many guys do, including myself, like I'm a learner as well. So we do this thing called the interview trap, where we're constantly asking question after question after question. And we think that this is good because we're getting the person to talk about themselves. But the thing is, when we're just asking questions, it feels more like the person is sort of pressured to give us responses. Even if they're, smiling, even if the person is acting like it's no big deal. Internally, they're like, "Geez, does this guy ever stop asking questions?" So to mitigate this, you need to make sure that you're actually following the topics. Let's say that they talk about how much they hate swimming. Then, instead of going on to the next question of, "Oh, you hate swimming, it's cool. So what school do you go to?" Or, "So have you ever eaten octopus before?" Like, huh? You need to dig into that. Really, why do you hate swimming so much? Is it like a childhood trauma thing? And then from there, they can open up to you and talk about whatever it is. Second of all, so that's one, follow the thread. Second, you need to make sure that you are asking, again, unique questions, not questions that they've heard a billion times. You can even splice up old ones. Instead of asking, how are you? Maybe you could ask, has there been anything good that happened to you today? Has there been anything negative that happened to you today? I know this sounds cringe. It sounds like you're being extra by asking this, but people don't even think about this. This is all unconscious. They're not going to think, oh, this person asked a question that was slightly different than the one I usually hear. He must be strange. Like, dude, if you think that's what they're going to say, you're overthinking it way too much. And you know what, to be fair, we do as well. In fact, if you do want a fast track to, let's say, get you to a good social level in just 5 days, then I have a free social guide for you in the description. Check it out. I'll send it to you. Now, this is the delicate part. You can add in your own stories. I know that there's a bit of a controversy in the social skills niche that people think talking about yourself in any capacity is a waste of time and will just make you seem arrogant and bored. I'm of the mind that telling stories can work, but they need to be relevant to the discussion. Completely derailing it to talk about something completely related to yourself that has nothing to do with them can seem a bit boring and cause the other person to glaze over, go AFK just thinking about what am I going to have for dinner tonight. That's a possibility. But if you do make it interesting, and if you do make it something related to the topic that they can comment on, then I think it could be pretty good. I'll make a video all about that in the future, so stay tuned. Subscribe, all that, fun jazz. Now, this is the part where some of you guys may have already clicked off, but, they just want the surface level stuff. This is deeper now. You may think that when a person when the conversation dies, you think that the problem was you. I did something wrong. Why don't they like me? All these things. When really, you need to acknowledge that a lot of the time, people just may not be in a talkative mood. Right now, let's just say that the world is... I'm not going to go like a downer route and say that it's terrible, but there are a lot of messy things happening. And people just have other things that are on their mind, whether related to their job, their family, their relationships, their income, anything else. And that naturally would mean they would be sometimes less inclined to have, fun discussions that lead somewhere. And you need to be okay with that, because there are plenty of people that are happy to have those discussions. So meeting somebody who isn't really in a talkative mood has usually, like 9 times out of 10, no reflection on you as a person or your social skills level, whatever. It just means you and that person didn't really gel, which is completely fine. And once you realize this, most conversations are a lot easier. So, in conclusion, make sure that when you're having conversations, you're asking interesting questions, splicing in some of your own stories if it's relevant, and just having fun. It may seem like this is all homework you need to write down and think of, but really, if you're just in a conversation to have a good time, these will naturally start to show themselves. So, thank you for listening to me. And remember, take action, learn from failure. See ya.